Welcome to the first episode of Makers and Movers, a video series which is about people, ideas, and organizations that make and move things. Now, what people, what ideas, and what things? I'll tell you about that in a minute, but first, let's have a look at what happened this week. This week, NDA scored a historic win in 2019 elections, the biggest ever for any political party or coalition in over about 3 decades. And Mumbai, where I'm recording this, in Mumbai, BSE Sensex surged to record highs after 2019 election. If I were to translate the bullish market sentiment, it's the markets saying that this is the biggest moment for the Indian economy after the economic liberalization of 1991. It's them saying that let's make the most of the ensuing period of economic and political stability and post the double-digit growth of GDP, which seemed out of reach after the economic recession of 2008. The big mandate will be the new life into Mission Make in India, which will continue in a bigger and bolder avatar, which is very likely. And let's call the second outing of Make in India as Make in India 2.0. 5 years ago, Make in India 1.0 was welcomed by everyone, including us in the business media, because it brought in, sorry about that noise, it's Sunday, vendors want to attract everybody's attention. Yeah, so I was saying that 5 years ago, Make in India 1.0 was welcomed by everyone, including us in the business media, because it brought in focus on increasing the share of manufacturing from 16%, share of manufacturing in GDP from 16% to 20%, creating 100 million jobs along the way. Sure enough, it saw intensified efforts in many critical areas such as ease of doing business, cross-border trading, a focus on intellectual property rights, building of infrastructure such as industrial corridors, etc. However, Make in India 1.0 started to lose its momentum in the last 1 year. To do a reality check, the latest index of industrial production or IIP data shows that the industrial output actually contracted by 0.1% in March, and the manufacturing output, which makes about 78% of industrial output, actually contracted by 4 times as much. There have been a lot of expert opinion and commentary on these issues in the last few months, and experts have pinned it on reasons ranging from demonetization to GST to the shortage of credit and the increased cost of borrowing for the private investors and the slowing consumption among the top 15% of India's spending population. See, here's the thing. Problems and challenges will always remain. We'll always have experts who will point them out. But we also need voices from within the industry that give us solutions. Voices from people, to paraphrase Theodore Roosevelt's quote, from people who are actually in the arena, who strive valiantly. People who are the makers and the movers. And that last phrase was not from Roosevelt. That is about the title, but you're smart to have figured it out. Now, the title Makers and Movers, as I said, it's about people who move things, that is, people, ideas, and organizations in the supply chain industry, and people who make things in the primary, secondary, and tertiary industries. Now, I want to share some insights. So, I want to talk about 3 critical areas that Make in India 2.0 needs to focus on for better, more visible, and tangible results. So, here we go. Now, make a note of this term. GVC stands for Global Value Chains, a term that you're going to hear very often in business and policy discussions in the coming days. Now, let me tell you the definition of GVC. The Cambridge Business English Dictionary defines GVCs as chains comprising different processes in different parts of the world that each add value to the goods or services being produced. The World Bank says that when an economy participates in a global value chain, it leads to higher economic growth, higher living standard, and improved job creation. Job creation has been a hotly debated issue. In fact, in a recent column written for Business Standard, Mr. Amitabh Kant, the CEO of Niti Aayog, wrote about this issue, and I quote from that column one particular line that I really agree with. He wrote, "The true challenge is to create well-paying jobs." Trends and numbers, I must say, support Mr. Kant's view. Every year, tens of lakhs of people apply for a handful of government jobs in India. And these candidates include doctors and engineers and architects and a lot of highly skilled and educated people who hold degrees and diplomas in technical fields. And this is not only in India, by the way. You'll be surprised that it's true for China as well, where government jobs are called iron rice bowls, which means bowls that give you an unlimited supply of rice all your life, which means lifelong benefits and security. The private sector will happily pick up any of these highly skilled candidates, but the candidates only want a government job, no matter how menial. The private sector in India as well as in China is unable to offer the iron rice bowl that the government jobs can. And why? Because they are on the lower rung of global value chains, where China is a bit higher compared to India, and it was planning to go even higher before it hit the T wall. And we'll talk about more of that later in the series. Let me give you the example of iPhone's GVC to illustrate the difference between higher and lower segments of GVC. Now, in iPhone's global value chain, obviously Apple is at the apex that does the research and development and product design, marketing, brand management, and after sales. And therefore, it keeps 58.5% of the total profits. Then come the critical components, the display, the cameras, storage, and Touch ID sensors come from South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. And phone assembly, the assembling of phones, which is a low value add manufacturing activity because it only adds about 5% to the cost of or it constitutes 5% of the cost of an iPhone, happens in China and most recently started in Brazil. Now, those countries that are higher up in the global value chain of iPhones get a tremendous boost because of this fact. Take Taiwan. The country, Taiwan, has seen an increase of 8.6% in electronics exports because of the ripple effect of being part of the iPhone GVC. India is also a part of iPhone's GVC, but in a very small way. Wistron Corporation, a key manufacturer for Apple, assembles Apple's iPhone SE and iPhone 6s for sale in India. That being said, India's GVC position is seeing signs of change. Last month, Foxconn Technology, the Taiwanese manufacturer for Apple, announced plans to mass manufacture latest iPhone models for sale in the country. Now that is big news. By moving up the iPhone GVC, India will be able to create a lot of high-paying jobs, the likes of which Mr. Kant was talking about. And more such measures should be taken for other high-value goods-producing industries such as aerospace and defense, pharma, biotech, medical devices, and other similar industries. So we need to see more of such measures in Make in India 2.0. Okay, that's a bit harsh, but it's creative as hell. You'll have to give me that. Well, I'm truly surprised why the Mandarins at Make in India haven't an action plan on this, how to leverage the ongoing US-China trade war. But wait, they do. And today's Mint, the Business Daily, has reported that a high-level advisory group set up by the Commerce Ministry has advocated, and this is important, advocated reducing India's overall tariffs to benefit from the ongoing trade war between the US and China. The advisory body, says the report, points out to the recent trends of increasing import tariffs, which is a throwback to the pre-liberalization protectionist policies of the 20th century, which not only weakened our industry, but have left a long-lasting impact. So the point number 2 is that in order to take advantage of the ongoing US-China trade conflict, India should not resort to the policy of import substitution, but instead look to reduce tariff barriers and take other similar measures to draw companies, especially those manufacturing in China, to do high-value manufacturing in India. And we'll explore this point further in the coming episodes of the series. Now, this is an important one. In order to create global industrial hubs in India, Make in India will have to look to remove supply chain complexities that persist. And in order to understand why removing supply chain complexities is important for a country to be a manufacturing powerhouse, let's look at Apple's supply chain industry. That's quite a tongue twister. Apple's supply chain strategy, not only because it's an exemplary case study, but also because Apple has taken a big hit because of the US-China trade war, and it's looking to expand its manufacturing outside China to diversify risk. There are two primary factors that determine the supply chain strategy and therefore the supply chain or global supply chain network of manufacturing giants like Apple. Number one is maximizing scalability, and number two is minimizing supply chain risks. Now, when it comes to maximizing scalability in India, there are some unpopular political decisions that have to be taken, such as the land acquisition reform and labor reforms. And I believe the current government has enough mandate to do that. Now, let's look at the other important criteria: reduction of supply chain risks. Now, multinationals, when they have to establish a manufacturing facility in some country, they look at a number of factors to ensure that the supply chain risks are low. And these factors include supplier ecosystem, closeness to large markets, also called nearshoring, industry-friendly policies, as importantly, supply chain efficiency. To see why countries like China, Vietnam, Japan, and South Korea do so well in manufacturing, I think it would be a good idea to see how they perform in terms of supply chain efficiency. And the best way to do that is to take a look at Logistics Performance Index, LPI. It's a benchmarking tool created by the World Bank to look at the logistics performance of 160 countries on parameters such as timeliness, customs, tracking and tracing, and logistics competence. So let's see what the rankings are of these countries. In the latest 2018 LPI rankings, Japan ranks at number 5, South Korea at 25, China just one rung below at 26, and Taiwan below China at 25. And as expected, these are all big industrial hubs. Now let's see where India ranks in LPI. India is down below at rank number 44. India's worst performing indicators are number 1, infrastructure, where it ranks even lower at 52, and timeliness, where it again ranks at 52. The best performance indicators are tracking and tracing, thanks to our IT muscle, and surprise, customs, where it ranks at 40. So what all of this means is that Make in India 2.0 should focus on two critical areas: one, infrastructure, and the other is timeliness of shipment deliveries. About infrastructure, BJP has firmly put it in their crosshairs with a manifesto promise of spending $1.4 trillion by the year 2024. And about the timeliness of deliveries, again, Make in India 1.2 had focused a lot of factors like ease of doing business and development of dedicated freight corridors, which will be operational in the next few years, improvements in intermodal transport connectivity, and perhaps most notably, the implementation of GST and e-way bills within that, which has dramatically reduced the lead time of shipments across the country. So the third point is that Make in India 2.0 will have to focus a lot more on reducing supply chain risks, supply chain complexities. And with that, I say thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Thank you so much.